Our February stats are in, and I'm here to share all of the data. Before we get into it, I want to break down and just give you my high level. There's a lot of numbers that we're going to see in this monthly report that may seem scary or cause for concern. But I want to share that this time last year, February and actually March was the peak of this hyper COVID time. So the numbers that I'm going to share with you will seem extremely different than this time last year, which will cause for maybe some panic or some alarm. But rest assured, as we start to move into definitely April and May, it should level out. So this month and next month will be a little bit nerve-wracking when we start to look at the numbers in a really granular form, because this time last year is when we were at that sort of tick, 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 the very top of this hyper COVID market. So I'm going to do a screen share here to get right into the numbers. So what we're seeing from a number of active sales, so property that were on the market that sold in the month of February, we only had 855. So this is the number right here. And then these are the averages. So in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2023, these are all the numbers. So the number of units sold was going up and now it's coming down. It's interesting that 5 years ago, back in 2019, there were over 150 more sales than there was in February of 2023. Big thing we're seeing though is this jump here. As I said at the beginning of the video, we're looking at a 42% decrease in units sold for the month of February 2023 versus February 2022. Now, there is some interesting and exciting news to share is in January, there's been a 5% increase in the sale price from January 2023 until February 2023. So this is a positive trend. It's the first time in months that we are actually seeing an increase, not a decrease. So the actual purchase price, so the sale price has gone up 5% from this month to last month. When we look at more granular data, number of units sold, we can see there's quite a drop, a 41% drop from units sold. This is residential from 2023 to 2022. We had 633 units sell in February of 2023. And in February of 2022, there was over 1,000. So a 41% decrease in units sold. So there's just not as much inventory that is selling in the month of February. We are seeing the gap close between where the average sale price was back in February of 2022, 836,000, and then in February of 2023, 708. So a 15% decrease. The other component that I think is really important when we're looking at these statistics is average days on market. And I'm happy to report that we are coming down from last month. We were at 43 days on market. And this month we're at 37. So obviously a big jump from 2022. In 2022, the average days on market was 11. Now in 2023, our average days on market is 37. When we average out all the different property classes, so residential, condominium, lot, multifamily, we're getting an average days on market of 40. And this time last year, the average days on market was 15. But as I said, last month, our average days on market was 43 for residential class. This month, our average days on market is 37. So we're coming down by 6 days on market, which again is a positive. Total sales volume is down by over 48%. Residential class, the sales volume, there was 450 million. This time last year, there was almost $1 billion worth of sales volume. So there is quite a drop in units sold. And really, there's just a lot of speculation with what's happening now on the market. I know the Bank of Canada has decided to freeze the rate. So there's just a lot of confusion right now. So why are we seeing such a decrease in number of units sold? Sale prices are off by 15% from this time last year. Days on market are up by 235%. Why is this all coming about? How can we make sense of it? Well, ultimately what it is the Bank of Canada has raised interest rates to slow down inflation. And what that is causing a lot of panic and uncertainty that buyers have. If we look at what property cost this time last year to what it is now, we're down by, as we just saw the stats, over 15%. So there's buyers right now that are speculating and concerned with, if they enter into the market, are they coming in too early? Is this going to go down further? But there's also the other thought of, is the market going to start to go up? And I think what we are going to see is next month, that is going to be quite a staggering analysis, and the numbers are not going to be friendly for us to see. But as we start to get into April, May, June, we are going to see less of a gap between units sold, between the average sale price back then to the average sale price now. And that will give a lot of consumer confidence to the buying population, which will then start to open up this bottleneck. So my prediction is the month of March is going to be rocky, and the data that's going to come out of March, when we look at that in April, is going to be quite staggering. But rest assured, as we start to get into April, May, June, July, that is when things started to level out last year. So when we're comparing month over month in an annual perspective, it'll start to make a lot more sense. And I think bring that consumer confidence back to the market. Historically, spring market is about 60 days ahead of a seasonal market. So if we think of, our springtime here in Ottawa, we're usually thinking kind of like April, May. Well, historically, a real estate market would be 60 days before that. So that would be sort of like a February, March. But what I predict, looking at the data and being in the trenches every day and speaking with buyers and sellers and really trying to pull back the curtain and share with you what we're seeing is, I think we are going to be, the opposite. I think the real estate market for 2023 is going to be 60 to 90 days after our seasonal spring market. So that looks like probably we're going to be into sort of that May, June, July in our spring market. And what does spring market mean? Spring market means when there's so much inventory that changes hands. Like, I don't have the statistic exactly to provide to you, but I'm going to throw out anywhere from like 35 to 48% of sales happen in a spring market. So I predict there will be a lot of property that turns hands. What does this mean for sellers? Well, if you're a seller, the one thing you do not want to have to be up against is competition. So right now, there is not a lot of inventory on the market. Inventory is in the buyer's favor. Inventory is not in a seller's favor, because we can't control what your neighbor does, what they list at, what terms they take. So, when talking with sellers saying, when should I sell? I say, well, ultimately it comes down to your family situation when you feel you need to sell. But if you're looking at historically when there is the least amount of property, it usually is in the winter time when most sellers are waiting until sort of that spring market when the snow is gone, the grass is out. And are there more buyers then? Yes, but there's also more sellers on the market at that point. And as a seller, you do not want to be competing against a bunch of other inventory, because real estate sells real estate. So if you are a buyer, you can only buy the active inventory that's on the market right now. That's it. So if there's only 2 properties on the market, you have a 50% chance of selling. Now, I know there's a lot that comes into the condition, the features, the benefits, the price of the location, all of that. But the whole idea is you have a 50% chance of selling. What if there's 10 properties on the market? Well, you have a 10% chance of selling. So I would encourage you, if you're a seller, there's a lack of inventory in the market. The February data has come out, which we've just shared. March is going to look a little bit scary because that's when we hit that peak during the hyper COVID time. But as we start to lead into April, May, June, July, I believe the bottleneck will open up and we will have a lot more active inventory and transactions taking place. I want to thank you for listening in. I hope you found this update helpful and valuable. There's so much data that I could go into detail. Please reach out if you have any questions, thoughts, if you'd like some, one-to-one advice or perspective on your unique situation. By all means, I'd be more than happy to give you my professional opinion. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next video.